Hello, this is Crystal from Lexi Bug Creations. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and today I'd like to show you how to make a masked background. And I'm sorry if there's a little bit of glare from my lighting, but this is kind of what we're going to be doing here and just adding a splash of color behind some stamped images. So let's get started. The first thing that you're going to need is a piece of glossy paper. I think Yupo paper, any kind of thing that's got a smooth, soft surface on it would work. And this is cut to 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches. And you're also going to need some washi tape. And this one is this looks like about 1/4 inch wide. You could go a little bit wider or a little bit narrower, just depending on the finished look that you would like. And you also are going to want to have 2 or 3 ink colors, as well as some blending tools. And I'm just going to use some blending brushes today. These are my favorite tool. They're easy for my hands to use, and I really do like those. And the other thing that's handy to have in your craft space is frog tape or painter's tape. So it's anything that has a low tack sticky on it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a little bit of adhesive on the back of my paper, and I'm just going to use my finger just to remove some of that sticky, because we want to be able to remove it. So if you have some temporary adhesive, you can certainly use that. And now I also have my grid paper here, and the reason is I like to use this to keep everything straight. So I'm just going to put it down here like that. So you have the decision. You can certainly use the whole area to add some color for masking or anything like that, but I am just going to do a strip. So I'm first going to take some of my painter's tape, and I'm just going to tape off a little bit along the side. And again, I'm using my grid lines to make sure that I get these pieces straight. Of course, this is giving me a little bit of a hard time today. I maybe make that a little too unsticky on the bottom. So let's try this again. Okay, so I'm just lining up at either end, and I'm just going to push this down to make sure that it's stuck on there really well. And then I'm going to use another piece, and I think I'm just going to have like a small border. So again, I'm going to use a wider space than I had on this one here. So I'm just going to basically use a little bit more of the background. Now I'm going to take my washi tape, and I'm just going to, once I get it released here, boy, I'm having a tough time today. All right, so I'm just going to take my first piece, and I usually like to go with the horizontal pieces first, and I'm going to go on a diagonal like that. You can go straight, you can do it however you want. And I'm just going to do, you know, kind of that topsy-turvy look. So everything's a little bit off center. Okay. So, and I'm just applying some pressure because I want to make sure that it is stuck onto the paper, so we don't want any ink to get underneath there. So now I'm just going to go and I'm going to start doing some vertical strips, and and this is going to be creating some quadrants where we're going to put our ink. So again, I'm just going from one kind of to the other. This one's a little long, so I'll just snip a little bit of that off. And it's just kind of, you know, just doing what you want. It just needs to be random. You don't need to have any, unless, you know, you are wanting to go a little bit more geometrical and creating some squares. But it's just not really necessary. I think I kind of like the sporadic kind of look. And I think maybe we'll just put, maybe that piece is too small. We'll put that one down here. And I think we'll just have one more there. Okay, so I think I'm quite happy with how that looks. So now we're ready to apply our ink. So I'm going to go with my lightest color. I've got the So Saffron here. And I'm just going to add some ink. And I usually like to kind of just tap it off because I don't want to get it too intense. And now I'm just kind of, and I can go across from one quadrant to another. I'm just going to add a little bit of the color to each quadrant. Don't be worried about not adding enough ink. You can always go back in and add more. I usually like to start a little pale and then work my way up. And as I get the other colors in, we want to try and blend them a little bit together. I will caution that sometimes colors don't work well together with each other. Purple is kind of a hard color because when it's blended with other things, it might want to turn a little bit brown, so you kind of end up with something that you weren't really expecting. So I'm going with colors that are similar. And again, I'm just keeping it light for now, because I can always go back in and add a little bit more color later. I know this washi tape that I'm using is bright bronze, I guess, is kind of a little bit distracting. But it doesn't really matter what you use because it's going to come off when we're done. Okay. And so that was Pear Pizzazz, and now I'm going to get my Calypso Coral. Oops, and I think this is quite a bit of a darker color. So I'm just going very light hand with this one. You don't need to apply too much pressure at all. You can see everything's kind of starting to blend a little bit. Oh, this always gets very exciting when you're ready to peel the tape off and see what you get. Okay, now I'm just going to come in with my yellow again and just try and get a little bit of that kind of blending in a little bit. I'm not too worried about how that's gonna look. Okay, I think that's good. I'm gonna close my ink because I get ink everywhere. Okay, so now we're gonna carefully pull off our tapes. You don't have to, you can pull these each off individually. It doesn't necessarily have to all come off at once. You just want to be careful not to pull any of your paper up. As you can see, we've got some nice crisp lines happening there. Oh yeah, this looks really good. Kind of went with some bit of fall colors today because we're just coming into fall time, and today has been a rather windy day. And one more here. Now this ink, I'm just using a standard water-based ink, so it does dry fairly quickly. I do recommend just trying not to run your fingers over top of it. You just don't, just giving it a little bit extra time to dry. So there we go. There's our beautiful masked background. So now we can do some stamping. So I have this set here. This is the Dragonfly Garden, and I'm just going to use these daisies, I guess is what those would be. And I can either, go upright. This is a bit of a taller one, but I think I want to do a landscape card. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and stamp there. So I'm going to ink this up. And because this paper is glossy, it's got a really slippery surface on it. So you really want to be careful when you're stamping. So I'm just adding some of my black Memento ink to this. This is water-based. Okay, so when you stamp this on, you just want to be very careful that you're just going straight up and down. You don't want to rock it because then you'll end up with a blurry image. And I think this is going to be easier for me just to turn it this way. So because I'm using my acrylic block that I can see through, I can see where my placement is going to be. And I think we're just going to go straight down like that. And I'm just holding it there just to transfer some ink over. And then I'm just going to lift it straight up. So there we go. I'm happy with that. And then I also have, from that same set, this butterflies. So I think we're just gonna maybe add those kind of up in the top here. So again, just going straight down, and I'm gonna be careful not to touch that, because this, you want to make sure it just gives you a little bit extra time for drying. And I'm trying to get a little bit more of a one layer look. So I'm also going to stamp my sentiment directly onto the card. And I've taken my sentiment from Pansy Patch. Just going to use this happy birthday stamp here. And now this is a photopolymer stamp instead of the red rubber. So again, and I am just going to stamp this down here in the bottom. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to let that dry for a minute and just clean up a little bit here. I'm one of those crafters that always likes to try and keep a tidy workspace so that I can find what I need when I need to. So the other thing that I have is I have a panel. This is black and it is 4 inches by 5¼ inches. And I'm going to adhere this all onto an A2 card base. An A2 is half a sheet of 8.5 by 11 cardstock and just scored in the center. So we'll just fold that. I'm going to use my bone folder. I'll get a nice sharp crease. Okay, so get my silicone craft sheet. I love this because nothing will stick to it. So I'm going to put some adhesive on the back of my panel. And see, and I managed to get a little bit of ink on there, but that's okay. We can cover that up with something. All right, so now I'm just going to try and center this on here as best I can. Should have about 1/8 inch border all the way around. Okay, and again, we don't want to rub our hands over that. So I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to burnish it from the back side. And burnishing just basically means you're just giving pressure so that, and giving the chance for that glue to really adhere together. Okay, so now I'm going to put it onto my card base. So just adding some more adhesive there. And you just want to make sure that you're going to be putting it on. So if the card's going to open up this way. So we're going to place it here. And again, the way that this is cut, there's about 1/8 inch border again on all 4 sides. And again, I'm just going to turn this over and burnish that from the inside. This is always a good habit to get into, burnishing from the back, because, you know, as card makers, we get ink all over our fingers. At least I do anyway. So there we go. That card is finished. And I'm really happy with that. I think it looks great. It's very simple. And then here's some other. So this one has used some nice butterflies. So in this one here, I've used some line stamps, whereas this one, they're a little bit more solid, but there's, you know, some breaks in it, so it's not that solid black. And then I have this sample here, so using a little bit different colors, and you can see I've used a purple on here and it doesn't really blend very well with the other colors, but I've also used more of a solid stamp there, and you can kind of see down on the bottom it's a little bit blurry, so I probably had a little bit of movement when I stamped that down there, but because of the way the stamp is, you can't really tell that that's what I've done. And then I have another sample here. And one of the things that I did, so I had my painter's tape and I wasn't paying much attention to my edges and wear. So I ended up with a couple of little spots of ink there that I then went and just kind of used, you know, distracted your eye away from that by using the bees. So there we go. So that was a really simple masked background that gives you this appearance that you put a lot of hard work into this, but it's very simple to do. I hope you've enjoyed my video. Please click the like button and subscribe to my channel so that you won't miss out on any future videos that I do. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.